I'm Phil Dawson, the Managing Director of SAUCLOUD, and I'd like to share my thoughts on the increasing use of terms such as sovereign and domestic when describing capabilities that the nation should control or possess. Only recently, in response to an embargo by the Italian government on a shipment of Oxford University AstraZeneca vaccine, Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the decision to produce the vaccine locally will ensure consistent supply for Australians. Let's not forget that 50 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine will be made right here in Australia, in Melbourne. And we took the decision to have the sovereign capability to do that because we did not want to be overly reliant or dependent on supply chains from somewhere else. Mr. Morrison said, Australia is one of the few countries in the world capable of replicating and manufacturing COVID-19 vaccines on local soil. I'll return to the use of sovereign capability in this context later. I believe that the terms sovereign and domestic are actually underpinned by two different but related concepts, namely sovereign control and domestic capability, which, when combined, I would suggest lead to the oft-cited but rarely defined concept of sovereign capability. I will also share why I think data and data security play such a critical role in achieving sovereign control, domestic capability, and ultimately, therefore, sovereign capability. Sovereign and domestic are concepts that are becoming increasingly critical for Australia's future, whether that is the ability to secure vaccines to increase the population's immunity from COVID or even future pandemics, or to ensure security of supply chain across new platforms under development across defence, or simply to secure the ability to generate retained economic benefits in an increasingly technologically centred world. In this presentation, I will explore not only how they differ and ultimately why this matters from a policy perspective, but also, more importantly, for the outcome for the nation. Furthermore, I will highlight how data affects both sovereignty and domestic considerations, and the implications this will have for Australia if it is not fully understood and addressed. Sovereignty and domestic are concepts that are regularly cited in relation to capabilities that Australia has or desires, especially in areas of national security, innovation, and or the promotion of local businesses, particularly SMEs and scale-ups. The concepts have been the subject of considerable discussion across federal and state parliaments, the subject of many working groups, and have formed key concepts across government policies. For example, the DTA's current hosting strategy, which has settled on conflating and confusing the concepts even further with the introduction of the term strategic in place of sovereign. What these definitions are is to clarify about what essentially a desire for national control across the direction of resources to initiate and affect a process or value chain with full sovereign control of all aspects of data, risk and outcome, and the capability to undertake the process within Australia independent of input or consent from any other nation. In my view, it is therefore critical that what is understood by sovereign and what is meant by domestic is defined in a way that is clear and unambiguous. This will enable government, as one of the largest purchasers of services in the country, to establish and to signal through their procurement decisions what relative importance they place on sovereign control and or domestic capability in those goods and services. In turn, this clarity should influence and incentivize industry to make investments that are aligned with these needs through their own economic self-interest. The objectives for clarity and transparency should be, for example, outcomes that build Australia's capability, strengthen Australia's sovereignty over data, including metadata and monitoring data, support investment into and purchasing of products and services provided by Australian SMEs, thereby increasing innovation and jobs growth, and also improve the cybersecurity and related data of supply chains for defence, for governments and for critical national industries. I believe that the desired outcomes can be better described if we separate the concepts into two areas, sovereign control and domestic capability, with true sovereign capability only being assured when both outcomes are achieved. And for those of you like me think better with pictures, a visual to assist you with understanding as to how they are different and why both are critical to Australia's overall security and cybersecurity protection and resilience. Sovereign control is ultimately about a national government's ability to control the direction of resources, people, assets, capital, IP, data, etc., and to initiate and affect a process or value chain with full sovereign control of all aspects of data, risk, and outcome. A consequence of this for the national government could be to reduce the risk of foreign interference, for example, prohibiting the export of vaccines, access to Australian IP, access to or manipulation of data, insights into commercial contracts with financial, technical, or other high-impact data, even coercion of employees through influencing their behaviours and decisions, and manipulation of transfer pricing to affect the retained economic benefits to Australia. Retained economic benefits in this context refers to a consideration as to where the benefits of investment, including government procurement, arise, which not only includes the actual profits, but also related taxes, jobs, and capabilities created for the future. Sovereign control is not simply about equity ownership. It is about all the criteria that can result in the control of an entity or organisation, including debt, including executive appointments, including the contractual conditions under which they operate, as well as access to and/or control over data. It would seem to be the reasoning behind DTA's Certified Assured Hosting and Certified Strategic Hosting provider definitions. In my view, domestic capability is different. It is about the capability to undertake a process, to design, to build, to create something, through the combination of resident assets, funding, people and their skills and experience, as well as access to the relevant data and/or IP. Domestic capability enables the following within a nation's territory: the capacity to establish export capability, generating export earnings in areas of strategic and/or comparative advantage. The self-determination to prioritise how, when, where and to what extent the capability is deployed. The influence to ensure that a greater proportion of retained earnings benefits are secured for the country, and the development of key capabilities to support the defence of the nation. In those areas where there is a national imperative to control and the combined desire to develop the capabilities domestically are those key activities where Australia needs to consider developing true sovereign capability. A contemporary example may help highlight the differences between control and capability, and ultimately the relevance of a clear definition of sovereign capability. Let's return to the recent case of the Italian blockade of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine shipment and unpack this real-world and relevant situation a little more. In this instance, Italy had the sovereign control of the shipment. It stopped delivery of the vaccine at its airports. Australia undoubtedly has the domestic capability to coordinate resources and the capability to manufacture, to distribute and to administer the vaccines to its population. However, if we are brutal about assessing where real sovereign capability ultimately exists over this vaccine, which is manufactured by a multinational corporation across multiple nations, it is in the UK, which contributed to the development of the vaccine, is home to the R&D centre where the vaccine is developed, has the manufacturing capability to produce the vaccine en masse, and also has the IT and cybersecurity smarts to protect the IP and the data. Hopefully this example provides a little more colour as to why the terms need to be better defined and understood. The challenge for governments, therefore, is to risk assess for now and in the future which capabilities, including critical technologies, it wants to support to reduce risk and foreign interference. It wants to support to build a domestic ecosystem that maximises the overall economic benefits, and which capabilities are so strategically critical that it must develop or secure sovereign capability, i.e. not only the development of the capability to deliver, but also the control to prioritise and protect. Furthermore, in an increasingly data-driven world, neither sovereign control nor domestic capability, and therefore by implication sovereign capability, can be achieved without the sovereign capability to maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of all data sources and then efficiently generate insights from the data in all its forms. As the Department of Home Affairs Secretary Michael Pezzullo recently stated at the recent AFR Business Summit, when commenting on cyber threats and the implications for Australia, realistically, over the next few years, we're going to see more data coming back on shore than we thought we would have been the case because of data sovereignty and privacy point of view. And I would say too right. Whatever the overseas controlling companies and their governments might say to him, this is way more than just data residency. It's about who ultimately has access to and can control the data. Is it the sysadmin based in Sydney or Seattle? Or the developer based in California or Canberra? This means that the convenient practice of ignoring the implications of permitting any form of data, whether that be customer metadata, monitoring data, or the analytics data, to fall outside of sovereign control or outside of domestic capability, ultimately weakens sovereign capability. This not only undermines the nation's defences, but also its future economic prosperity and self-resilience becomes a risk that government should only take with full and due consideration, rather than by accident or happenstance, as it occurs today. So in summary, my view is sovereign capability consists of sovereign control combined with domestic capability. Thank you.